I have this theory that's bigger than just Pimp C, and there's a lot of mysterious celebrities, a lot of mysterious celebrity deaths in hotel rooms.
So tell me about Buddy. Can you?
Buddy the nigga who killed my cousin.
Because he was pulling people together. They killed my brother because he was pulling people together.
It's been almost 2 decades since the tragic passing of Chad Butler, better known as Pimp C, one half of the iconic rap duo Underground Kings, UGK. Alongside his partner Bun B, Pimp C made a massive impact on Southern rap. However, his sudden death in early December 2007 still leaves many unanswered questions. Could there have been more to his death than we've been told? Could this be a bigger story than we know?
I have this theory that's bigger than just Pimp C, and there's a lot of mysterious celebrities, a lot of mysterious celebrity deaths in hotel rooms.
Pimp C was staying at the Mondrian Hotel in West Hollywood, California. He was in town working on new music and had even been performing with Too Short. On the morning of December 4th, 2007, he was supposed to fly back home. His wife, Chynara, along with his cousin Ed, were waiting at the airport to pick him up, but he never made it back.
At this hour, members of the hip-hop community are mourning the shocking death of well-known Port Arthur rapper Pimp C.
When they didn't hear from him that morning, Chynara called the hotel and asked them to check on him. That's when the hotel staff found Pimp C unresponsive in his room, and sadly, paramedics pronounced him dead shortly after. He was just 33 years old.
It is news that has shocked and saddened Houston's hip-hop community.
Pimp C at the age of 33 was found dead in his hotel room.
The coroner's report ruled his death as accidental, pointing to his heavy usage of lean, a mixture of codeine and promethazine, combined with his sleep apnea as the cause. Like many Southern rappers, Pimp C often mentioned lean in his music.
It's a pharmaceutical. You get promethazine with codeine cough syrup, and you mix it in your favorite flavored soda.
But since his death, a lot of people have questioned this narrative, suggesting something more sinister might have happened.
Like, what happened? And all I get back is, well, he was in his room by himself and they found him. I'm like, was the door, did it have that thing on it? Like, was it the lock? Like, tell me something. I never really heard something that would give that closure for me. I never really heard anything tangible or true, like what happened to my guy.
There are those who believe Pimp C was actually murdered by a man named Larry Adams, also known as Buddy. According to Pimp C's cousin, Pimp C was poisoned.
So tell me about Buddy. Can you?
Buddy the nigga who killed my cousin.
The story goes that a bunch of people were hanging out in Pimp C's hotel room. At some point, Pimp C went to the restroom, and Buddy allegedly told everyone in the room to stay quiet because he wanted to play a prank on Pimp C. He supposedly put something in Pimp C's drink, and when Pimp C came back and took a sip, he almost immediately started throwing up blood.
So C went to the restroom, and Buddy said, look, y'all don't say nothing, I'm gonna play a joke on Pimp. And he poured something into his drink. When he came back from the restroom, he started drinking it and almost immediately started throwing up blood.
What really convinced Pimp C's cousin that something was fishy was what he found when he went to the hotel to pack up Pimp C's belongings. When he pulled back the covers on the bed, he saw blood stains.
I packed C bags after he passed.
From that same hotel
From that same hotel. I pulled back the cover of the bed and there was blood in the bed.
Additionally, Buddy had been going around Jackson, Mississippi, bragging about what he had done to Pimp C, according to the cousin.
You and I said that you had heard the same thing, that he was going around bragging.
Yep.
That he had done this.
Yep.
What?
Yes, in the streets of Jackson.
Pimp C's mother also believed her son was murdered. She wanted to raise enough money to have Pimp C's body exhumed for further investigation, but sadly passed away before she could do so.
Mama died saying my baby was poisoned with cyanide. Her wish was to raise up enough money to have the body exhumed.
Author Julia Beverly, who wrote Pimp C's biography, Sweet Jones, Pimp C's Trill Life Story, also supported this theory. She said Pimp C's mother was convinced her son's death was no accident and that he was murdered.
A lot of people, they still don't quite want to believe how he passed, what was going on with that. I mean, were you able to delve into that and figure out what was going on when he passed?
Yeah, there's a, well, his mom believes he was murdered.
Adding to the intrigue, some conspiracy theorists claim the media used the story of an overdose as a cover-up, suggesting that Pimp C was murdered because he was trying to expose certain individuals during an interview conducted just days before his death.
That's cool, but be gay and come on out and be that. Don't be in front of us and act like a straight-up G, and then you get over here and you letting these boy bust up your back.
So what really happened to Pimp C? Let's dive deeper into the details. So, there's really no such thing as a death that feels expected, but Pimp C's passing hit particularly hard, especially since it happened during such a pivotal moment in his career. He died just months after he and Bun B had teamed up with Outkast for the hit International Players Anthem, I Choose You, which turned out to be UGK's biggest commercial success and one of the greatest rap songs ever made. Now let's talk about Larry Franklin Adams, aka Buddy. Born in 1983 in Jackson, Mississippi, Larry eventually made his way to Fresno, California, where he became a well-known player in the game. It wasn't long before Larry and Pimp C crossed paths and started building a relationship. According to people in Pimp's circle, Larry would often show up at Pimp's out-of-town shows, getting closer and closer to him over time.
Who was a guy named Buddy?
Man named Larry. Okay. We called him L.A.
We had been toning down the content of certain things in the music lately. My new album, of course, probably won't have any references to cough syrup in it.
Larry even invested a whopping $100,000 into UGK.
I'm not sure the total amount.
He said that on the phone.
He gave C like $100K.
Fast forward to 2007, Pimp was in LA finalizing a huge publishing deal worth 8 figures. But behind the scenes, something sinister was brewing, and Pimp's hotel room would be the scene of his untimely death. According to rumors, Pimp's wife Chynara might have had a hand in his death. One major red flag was that Pimp's cousin, who usually traveled with him, didn't make this trip. Apparently, Chynara told Pimp that his cousin was busy with work, so Pimp didn't arrange for him to come along.
I thought you had to work. This is why they was already gone. Like, nah, where you get that from? Well, Chynara told C you had to work so you couldn't go on the trip.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
So, by her telling him I couldn't go, stopped me from going.
Here's where things get shady. On the night of his death, Pimp was left alone in his hotel room with 3 people. Chynara, who was there at the time, left the room claiming she needed to move Pimp's Bentley to prevent it from being towed, despite the car being in a completely different state. Not long after she left, Pimp was allegedly poisoned and tragically lost his life.
You got the extra key, go move the car. Instead of me moving the car, she flew back to move the car, which left him alone. That bothered me for a long time, too.
Adding fuel to the fire, there were rumors that Chynara started an affair with Larry not long after Pimp's death, and even ended up marrying him.
Is it true that Pimp C's wife married a man named Buddy? Same Buddy? There it is.
Furthermore, there were allegations that she misused Pimp C's funds after his passing, leading to her removal as the administrator of his estate. In 2016, a Texas judge removed Chynara as the estate administrator after Pimp C's son raised concerns about how his father's finances were being handled. An attorney for Chad Butler Jr., Pimp C's oldest son, revealed to the judge that their father's home in Port Arthur was facing foreclosure. Expensive jewelry was missing, and various bills had gone unpaid. At the court hearing, Josh Hines, an attorney for Chad Butler, presented financial documents showing that Chynara had spent $150,000 of the estate's revenue between 2011 and 2013 and over $80,000 in the recent years. Public records also showed that the estate had a $7.2 million federal tax lien and owed $5.1 million to a former manager. Nobody's gotten any money, said Hines. She's on red carpets in Los Angeles and New York, and these kids have nothing. Now, whether these rumors hold any truth or not, it's wild to think about. But let's take a moment to dive into the life of Chad Lamont Butler, known to the world as Pimp C, whose life was supposedly taken away far too soon. Chad was born on December 29, 1973, in Crowley, Louisiana, arriving prematurely as the first and only child of Charleston and Weslyn Butler. Shortly after his birth, the young family moved to Port Arthur, Texas, which Chad would come to consider his true home. Due to his premature birth, Chad faced numerous health challenges growing up. He had a birth defect that caused his legs to point inward, suffered from digestive problems, had poor eyesight, and endured several bouts of pneumonia as a child. Music was always a central part of Chad's life. His father was a trumpet player who once performed with Solomon Burke, so their home was filled with the sounds of jazz, blues, and soul. Some of Chad's earliest musical influences included legends like B.B. King, Ray Charles, Jimmy Smith, Jimmy McGriff, and Marvin Gaye. Inspired by these greats, Chad began learning various instruments by ear, including the piano, trumpet, drums, and flugelhorn, long before he learned to read musical notation. When Chad was just 6 years old, his parents separated. His mother, Weslyn, later married Norwood Monroe, a band teacher. Fortunately, Norwood's presence didn't create any tension. In fact, he and Chad bonded over their shared passion for music, with Norwood teaching Chad how to read music. In 1983, Chad had his first taste of rap music when a friend lent him an early Run DMC album. He was instantly hooked. Even at the age of 10, Chad started educating himself about the origins of rap, learning everything he could about this new genre that had captivated his imagination. Although his interest in rap was growing, he continued to pursue a more traditional musical path. As a teenager, he joined the choir, played numerous instruments at school, and even received a Division I rating for a tenor solo at a UIL choir competition. Despite his traditional musical pursuits, Chad's passion for hip-hop began to take over, encouraged by his stepfather, who influenced him to incorporate more musical instruments into his sound. Chad started writing and creating his own music. While still in high school, Chad began collaborating with fellow musicians including Mitchell Queen, Bernard Bun B. Freeman, and Jaylon Jackson. Eventually, Chad and Bun B formed a rap duo, calling themselves UGK, short for Underground Kings.
When Pimp and I first became rap partners, we were not technically in a group together. We were part of a collective of people. So Pimp was already in a group with another person, Mitchell Queen, and that was actually, they were called the Underground Kings.
The moderate local success UGK enjoyed helped them generate enough buzz to land a deal with Jive Records in the same year. With a major label behind them, the future for UGK seemed brighter than ever. All they needed now was a strong debut album. On November 10, 1992, UGK dropped their major label debut, Too Hard to Swallow. The album hit number 37 on the US top R&B/hip-hop albums chart and received generally positive reviews. Singles like Tell Me Something Good and Pocket Full of Stones garnered significant attention, with Pocket Full of Stones even featuring on the soundtrack of the movie Menace to Society, giving the group a taste of national exposure. Though it didn't reach the Billboard Hot 100, Too Hard to Swallow solidified UGK as a rising force in the rap game. With their second album on the horizon, anticipation was building. 2 years later, on August 30th, 1994, UGK released Super Tight. This time, the album broke into the Billboard 200, landing at number 95. It was a great commercial success. The single From The Back gained popularity similar to Pocket Full of Stones, continuing to put UGK on the map. Following their Billboard debut, UGK continued to move forward, and after 2 more years, the duo released their third and most successful album at the time, Ridin' Dirty. The album soared to number 15 on the Billboard 200 and received widespread critical acclaim. Pimp C's production skills and Bun B's unmatched lyrical flow were highly praised. Despite having no official singles or music videos, the album became their biggest commercial success to date, selling 70,000 copies in its first week alone. Its popularity and influence quickly earned it a place as one of the most influential albums in Southern hip-hop, especially in the Houston scene. After breaking into the mainstream, the duo decided to take some well-earned time off. Instead of working on their next album, they took a different approach. Over the next 5 years, UGK appeared on several tracks as featured artists and released a couple of singles in 1999, which would later be used on their upcoming album. However, there was no sign of its release. It's hard to say whether it was their decision to hold back the album, as rumors suggested they had intended to release it well before its original date, with advertisements for it appearing on some Jive Records albums as early as 1998. During those 5 years, UGK continued to perform countless shows across the country, participate in multiple interviews, and collaborate with some of the biggest rappers of the time, including Scarface, C Murder, Master P, Outkast, Ludacris, and many more. Their streak of success didn't end there. In 2000, UGK appeared on 2 mega singles, Big Pimpin' by Jay-Z and Sippin' on Some Syrup by the legendary Memphis hip-hop group 3 6 Mafia. These collaborations further cemented UGK's place in the hip-hop world, proving that they were a force to be reckoned with. Despite taking a break, Underground King's popularity only seemed to grow, and with mainstream hits backing them up, it was time to make their next big move. Unfortunately, just as they were about to set a date for their next album, Pimp C ran into serious trouble back in Houston. On December 16, 2000, Chad was arrested at Houston's Sharpstown Mall after allegedly holding a woman at gunpoint and threatening to shoot her following a confrontation in a shoe store. The story goes that Butler and a woman named Lakeitha Hullett got into an argument in the store. Hullett claimed that Chad pushed a gun into her side and threatened her, saying, "I'll shoot you." Chad, however, insisted that he only lifted his jacket to show the gun but never removed it from his waistband, while a couple of Hullett's friends backed her story in the police report. One of them admitted she never saw Chad actually pull out the gun, a detail also confirmed by a store clerk. This clerk stated that Chad remained calm and that Lakeitha was the one causing trouble. He suggested that if Lakeitha hadn't jumped on Chad, the incident might never have escalated. Following the confrontation, Pimp C attempted to leave the mall and get into his car. However, he was surrounded by numerous officers who instructed him to surrender. Chad ignored their orders, leading the officers to slam him to the ground so hard that they nearly knocked him unconscious. He was taken to Houston Central Jail and charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The next morning, he posted bail of $10,000 and was initially sentenced to probation after pleading no contest and admitting to having a gun at the scene a few months later. With his legal troubles temporarily sorted out, UGK began planning their comeback. After a long 5 years, Chad and Bun B managed to gather enough momentum for Jive Records to finally greenlight their 4th studio album. On November 15, 2001, UGK released Dirty Money. Despite being released with little to no advertising, it debuted at number 19 on the Billboard 200, selling 98,000 copies in its first week. However, while the group had garnered significant attention over the previous 5 years, the album didn't perform as well as Jive Records had hoped. It peaked lower compared to their previous album and sold 250,000 fewer copies, even though UGK's popularity had doubled. Jive Records considered it a failure, unable to capitalize on the newfound interest in the group. Despite this, Dirty Money still received a lot of love from fans and the hip-hop community. As UGK's comeback was starting to take shape, more legal troubles followed. Only 2 months after Dirty Money was released, Pimp C found himself back in prison. He had repeatedly failed to report to his probation officer, didn't keep up with his community service hours, refused to pay outstanding fees, and tested positive for weed twice. His trial began on August 5, 2002. Despite conflicting statements, with so many probation violations and pleading guilty to the Sharpstown Mall incident, the facts of what had actually happened were deemed irrelevant. The real question was no longer whether he committed a crime, but how long he should be punished for it. Mama Wes, Pimp C's mother, recalled that day as the biggest mockery of justice. Pimp C's lawyer made matters worse by portraying him as a drug addict struggling with mental health problems and experiencing manic states from depression. The trial didn't last long, and by 9:50 a.m., the judge sentenced Chad Butler, aka Pimp C, to 8 years in prison.
Pimp C recorded a long list of albums. Until 2001, Pimp C, aka Chad Butler, was arrested. UGK rapped about the prison system. Is it different?
That's ironic. That's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
His arrest and sentencing sparked outrage in the hip-hop community, leading to a widespread Free Pimp C campaign initiated by Bun B and many others. With Pimp C in prison, UGK was once again forced to go on hiatus, and both members pursued solo careers. While incarcerated, Chad married his wife Sonara and tried to make the best of his situation by reading the tons of letters sent to him each week from fans. After serving 2.5 years, Pimp C released his solo debut album, Sweet James Jones Stories, featuring material recorded before his incarceration. The album debuted at number 50 on the Billboard 200 and received positive reviews. Half a year later, Bun B released his first solo project, Trill, which peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200 and was a great success. After spending 3 years in prison, Chad Butler was released on December 30th, 2005 and placed on parole until December 2009. Now a free man, Butler vowed never to return to prison and focused on his next project. He immediately hit the studio and started working on his second studio album. On July 11th, 2006, Pimp C released Pimpalation, which featured numerous guest appearances from prominent rappers. The production was handled by several legendary producers, including Mr. Lee, known for his work on platinum albums like Scarface's My Homies and Tupac's Still I Rise, Manny Fresh from Cash Money Records, and the iconic Mike Dean. The album debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and was eventually certified gold. For many artists, being away for such a long time could mean the end of a career, but that wasn't the case for Pimp C or UGK. The duo picked up right where they left off and on August 7, 2007, released their 5th studio album, the self-titled Underground Kings.
Pimp C, good to have you home, brother.
Good to be here.
How it feel to be here, man?
You know, it's a blessing to be able to come home and get treated this way.
The double album Underground Kings was a massive project, spanning 2 discs with a total of 26 tracks. It featured an even more impressive lineup of guests than ever before, including international rappers from across the scene. Top-tier producers like DJ Paul, Juicy J, Swizz Beatz, The Runners, Lil Jon, Jazzy Fa, Scarface, and Pimp C himself contributed to the album, ensuring a high-quality production that fans eagerly anticipated. For years, UGK's fans had been waiting for new music, and when Underground Kings finally dropped, they soaked up every second. The album peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200, marking their first number 1 album. The single International Players Anthem became their only single to chart on the Billboard Hot 100, where it peaked at number 70. This massive success solidified UGK's status as Southern rap legends. After years of ups and downs, UGK was finally back on top, sitting alongside hip-hop greats. The trials and tribulations they faced made their success even sweeter, and they could finally revel in the well-earned limelight. However, the celebration was short-lived. Just a few months later, tragedy struck not only UGK but the entire hip-hop community. The news of Pimp C's untimely death sent shockwaves through the scene, leaving thousands of fans devastated and mourning the loss of a beloved icon.
Underground Kings was at the peak of its career on the charts and on the way to a Grammy nomination when tragedy struck in December.
That's when Chad Butler, known as Pimp C, died in a Los Angeles hotel room.
Pimp C's body was transported back to his hometown of Port Arthur, Texas, where he was laid to rest on December 15, 2007. His funeral was attended by many fans and residents of Port Arthur, with speakers including the mayor, his mother Weslyn Monroe, and Bun B tributes poured in from fans and fellow artists around the world, highlighting Pimp C's impact on Southern hip-hop and his legacy as a talented rapper, producer, and cultural icon. Despite conflicting reports and numerous conspiracy theories, many people believe that Pimp C's death wasn't just a tragic accident, but rather part of a bigger and more complex plot. Pimp C had always stood firm on his beliefs, often calling out the music industry and refusing to conform to its profit-driven agenda.
Come on out and be that. Don't be in front of us and act like a straight-up G.
Artists to talk to each other. We get to talking too much. We just might put a union together. And if we unionize, they can't win no more.
These claims of an inside job surrounding his death were discussed by numerous musicians within the industry.
That's what they didn't want, because he was pulling people together. They killed my brother because he was pulling people together.
Over 15 years later, the mysterious details of what happened on the night of December 2, 2007 remain unsolved, leaving fans grappling with unanswered questions and lingering suspicions. While Pimp C's death was nothing short of unusual, his spirit continues to live on through his timeless music and the impact he had on hip-hop. His raw talent, unapologetic honesty, and unwavering dedication to his craft left an indelible mark on the music industry, inspiring countless generations to come. Rest in peace, Chad Lamont Butler.